We've got a fine turnout. Scott Wilcox, do you want to make on behalf of the executive committee? Do you want to make any welcoming remarks? Otherwise, I'll dive in.
Yeah, no, go ahead. I don't have anything.
All right. Well, folks, good afternoon. I think everybody's in afternoon, whether you're Eastern or Central or Pacific time zone. I'm Fernando Costa. I serve as assistant city manager for the city of Fort Worth, and I've had the pleasure and the honor over the last 3 years or so to work with a group of civic leaders in Fort Worth toward development of a African American museum and cultural center in Fort Worth as an outgrowth of a project to redevelop a historically African American public housing community. And one thing has led to another, and we're now at the stage of considering the qualifications of respective firms to conduct a feasibility study for us. The effort, even though I happen to work for the city of Fort Worth, this effort is being sponsored by a newly formed 501c3 nonprofit organization called the Fort Worth African American Museum and Cultural Center, which consists, for the moment at least, of a 4-person executive committee chaired by Dr. John Barnett, a distinguished pediatric dentist in Fort Worth with longstanding Fort Worth roots. I spent, after studying at Howard University, spent many years in New Orleans, practicing pediatric dentistry there, teaching at LSU. And then a little storm called Katrina forced him to move back home to Fort Worth, and we were much the better for it. So he's been leading this effort. The vice chair of the nonprofit group is Mr. Andy Taft. Andy is president of Downtown Fort Worth, Inc., and a prominent civic leader in Fort Worth. The secretary is Dr. Jennifer Brooks, an educator, and also equally prominent in our community. And the treasurer is on the line, is Scott Wilcox, who is the chief operating officer for the Amon Carter Museum of American Art, a notable institution in Fort Worth. So you can tell from the caliber of our leadership that this is a serious undertaking with the highest standards, and we're very happy to be associated with it. And the city is providing some initial technical assistance. In due course, the nonprofit organization will be able to fly with its own wings, and they've recently leased some office space at the Fort Worth Community Arts Center building. They've retained legal counsel, an accountant, and opened a bank account and so forth. So we've got a legitimate group spearheading the effort. With me from the staff side and who will be speaking momentarily is Victor Turner. Victor is our Director of Neighborhood Services, which involves housing, community development, social services. And he's involved in large measure because this effort began with a public housing redevelopment project and turned into a museum initiative, which was arguably long overdue in Fort Worth and has generated a great deal of excitement. We issued a request for qualifications just a couple of weeks ago. And today we had the opportunity to hold a pre-submittal conference to share with you information firsthand and answer your questions, provide any clarification that might be necessary, make sure that everybody has access to the same information. At the same time, obviously, we're not at liberty to answer individual questions independently, but we are able to answer all questions at this time and respond in writing to any of your needs for clarification. We appreciate the strong response from several highly qualified firms across the country We have relied largely on advice that we've received from numerous sources about who the experts are in the field, and we feel confident that we've identified many, and we're happy you've responded and have joined us this afternoon. I wonder if it would be appropriate to go around and ask everyone to introduce themselves. Let me see if to simplify things. Why don't I call you by name as your name appears on the screen, and have you tell us something about your affiliation in brief. I see Amy Bridge on the line. Ms. Bridge?
Yeah. Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. Well, I'm here today because I have a sincere interest in Fort Worth. I've had an opportunity to work on Heritage Park and visit the city a lot lately, and I'm very intrigued by how much growth and meaningful growth the city is experiencing. It just has a great energy, and I think it appears to have a resiliency that a lot of other cities in the country really aren't experiencing right now. So I'm just very excited about it, and I'd like to see this project evolve and support it in any way that I can.
Thank you, Ms. Bridge. Would you identify the name of your firm?
Bridge like a bridge.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you, ma'am. All right.
My pleasure.
Mr. Brad Netterhoff.
Yes, I'm Brad Niederhoff from Werner Johnson. We're architects and planners out of Boston, and we've teamed with John Gerner, who's also on the call, to put together an RFP, an RFQ for the project, and very interested in the way you've put it all together. A very good job of submitting the document to everyone. So,
thank you, Mr. Netterhoff. I see Noel Geiger next door.
Good afternoon. I'm Noelle Geiger with Legends, and I am the marketing coordinator, and we're excited to have an opportunity to participate.
Thank you, ma'am. Conrail, let's see the name of the individual. That's the name of the firm from Arlington, Texas. We had someone from Conrail. Okay, I'm sure they're on the line and joining us shortly. Let's turn to our friend Guy Herman.
Hi, Guy Herman from Museum Insights. Really interested in the project. We specialize in this kind of startup phase of museum building projects, and this one seems to have a lot of potential. You've done a lot of work, and we're really interested in how it moves forward from here.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Thank you for joining us today. Jack Phillips.
Hi, my name is Jack Phillips. We have an office, Bergen Street Studio, in Fort Worth in the near South Side, and in Brooklyn, New York. I'm a native Fort Worthian, born, and early part of my life was sort of informed by living in Fort Worth and all things Texas, and moved to New York to go to graduate school, and I'm excited about the things that are going on in Fort Worth, and this is such an important benchmark for the future of Fort Worth and the citizens of the community, and we're excited to be on the call.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. John Gerner.
I'm John Gerner. I'm Managing Director of Leisure Business Advisors and part of the Werner Johnson team.
Thank you, sir. I think you may have the most interesting window in the background.
Thank you. It's I live in an historic home here in Richmond, Virginia, and it's one of the benefits of it.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir. Mr. Decker, Roy Decker.
My name is Roy Decker. I'm with Duval Decker Architects and Planners, and we were doing a lot of work in Texas, a lot of work in Arlington, and very excited about the prospects of supporting Fort Worth and the Fort Worth African American Museum and Cultural Center to become a reality. We believe in these institutions teaching us all how to be better in our society.
Thank you, Mr. Decker. Ms. Shannon Gathings.
Yes, it's Shannon Gathings. I'm an architect and associate with Duval Decker Architects. along with Roy. I could just echo his sentiments. It's really exciting to see a community institution give this kind of investment into its people. So we're really excited. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for joining us. Mr. Ted Silverberg.
Greetings, everybody. I'm Ted Silverberg. I'm the senior principal at Lord Cultural Resources, responsible for market and financial planning. We have done lots of work with African American and other culturally specific museums, and also a substantial experience working in the Fort Worth, Dallas region. Appreciate being on the line.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I recall your firm did some work with us many years ago. I know you've done a lot of work since then in Dallas and other communities. Welcome, sir. Let's see. This is Sean Stanwyck.
Hi, everyone. It's fitting. I'm following Ted, actually. I'm also with Lord Cultural Resources out of our Toronto office. I'm the Director of Facilities Planning, responsible for building programming, working close with Ted on projects just like this, and looking forward to the opportunity should we have the chance. So nice to meet everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Stanwyck. And then we have a gentleman named Tom.
I haven't used WebEx in a while, so I couldn't figure out how to get my whole name on there. So Tom Owen with PJB Destinations, couple of familiar faces I'm seeing here. We're planning and design firm based out of St. Louis. We work internationally, have done a lot of work in Texas. So we're very excited about this opportunity also.
Thank you, sir. And we have a lady named Catherine.
Hi there, I'm Catherine Flanagan.
I can't make it out very well.
Can you hear me?
Can't quite make it out. I think that, oh, there she is. There's Catherine.
Can you hear me?
I'm not sure we can hear you well.
Catherine, I can help. Catherine is with the Duval Decker team.
Oh, fantastic.
So part of our core group. So thank you, Catherine.
Oh. Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. All right. And now I get to turn to, oh, there's one more. Adam Davis has joined us. Mr. Davis, we're introducing ourselves.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, I've been in the whole time. I'm happy to be here. I'm from Arts Consulting Group. We're a nationally based company that focuses on the arts and culture sector. I happen to be in St. Louis as well, Todd, so it'd be nice to connect at some point. And we might be looking for a partner on this, but we do a lot of work in the museums and performing arts industry, and we've been doing a lot of work in Texas recently. So happy to be on the call.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Okay, so now I get to turn it over to my esteemed colleague, Victor Turner, who's prepared to walk us through the RFQ and explain our request. Victor.
Thank you, Fernando. I'm going to attempt to share the screen. Let's see. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
All right. And I take it that everyone also had, they received a copy of the actual request for qualifications as well. I know I put a read receipt to try to make sure I covered everyone, but want to make sure you all have that.
Victor, can you put it on full screen?
Yeah, let me see. Yeah. How about that?
That's terrific. We've got a comment in the chat box, by the way, from Mr. Alley with Conrail. I think we were having trouble connecting with him on the line. And I think we actually sent them 2 copies of the RFQ, but they still haven't received it. So we'll want to resend it to them. Thank you. Pardon for the interruption, Victor.
No problem. All right. Well, thank you all. I'll be brief as I can and long as necessary. So we're going to basically highlight some of the things that were in the RFQ without assaulting your intelligence and going reading it to you. So we'll proceed as follows. So Dr. Barnett was already mentioned that he's out, and Andy Taft. And so I'm Victor Turner, as Fernando mentioned, Director of Neighborhood Services. And these are some of the high points that I want to cover from the RFQ. And then if you all have some questions at the end, either myself or Fernando attempt to try to address those. The main thing is we want to cover is the schedule. We did get a couple comments about flexibility on deadline, and so it's something I think the selection committee and the board will have to visit with after today's call. I know that may have been some issues with an email on a couple folks, so we'll get back with you on any flexibility with that. So October 17th, today we're having our pre-submittal conference. If there's an addendum that needs to be issued, we'll do that effective tomorrow. You'll see that the deadline currently is October 28th, and the submittals will be sent to Dr. Barnett, and you can see his email is in the line above on October 14th, so that will be submitted to him. And then we currently have planned to select and notify finalists November 11th. Next is the criteria that we have. And in the RFQ, you can see it's spelled out a little bit more detail, but experience, the approach, the team, past performance, evidence that the firm is available, and then MBE, WBE. Not quite like how a city would look at that, but looking at diversity of the team be another factor. The scope of work, there are 3 or 4 pages outlining that scope. We'd like to have, as part of that, an orientation meeting that the selected firm would have to kind of get a little bit more detail of what we'd like to see as an end product, as well as interview some stakeholders and project partners. And then, of course, the site and area evaluation. We've already narrowed that down to 3 different sites for the firms to look at and consider and provide a report to us. The concept description, basically a recommendation of a thematic approach or museum trends, a type of concept for it, for the museum. Of course, market analysis is self-explanatory. Evaluation of comparable facilities. We'd like for you to take a look at other facilities, not just in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but other parts of the country that might be similar to what we're seeking in Fort Worth. The annual usage, estimate for the first 5 years what the operation will be like. The market, exhibits, location, potential competition, those things that are spelled out in the RFQ. The physical planning and concept development, make some recommendations. As you can see in the RFQ, there is 3 buildings, community arts building. There's a building in downtown Fort Worth, an older building that's former Lone Star Gas. And then we have the Gwynn School. So those are the 3 sites that you'll be looking at as regards to physical planning, concept planning. And then financial analysis, which will include a pro forma, first 5 years of operation, what we can expect, and recommendations on that. And then the 9th task is the maximum amount that should be spent to develop the project. We have some idea of what could be spent, but we want to get your expertise on development costs. budget. The nonprofit has set an amount for this feasibility study between $250,000 and $275,000 to complete the feasibility study, with some negotiation room in that. And these are some reports that we'd like for you to take a look at that we've been, it's been completed different times over the past couple years that as we contemplated a museum. One was a survey that professor at University of Texas at Arlington did. It's a small survey just to kind of get some feedback on whether this was a worthwhile project to pursue. Then we had an actual 3-day, 4-day workshop with panelists from Dallas, Fort Worth, and different parts of the country to give their input on the viability of a African American Museum or Cultural Center in Fort Worth. So we did a report on the outcomes of that workshop. And then the Butler Place community workshop, where all this started from, we have that available. And then the Fort Worth Comprehensive Plan, which talks about just overall city of Fort Worth development, housing and commercial development, future land use, something you to take a look at. And then we also had a study done by the Urban Land Institute. We had a mini technical assistance panel that looked at various sites in the city and gave some input on, from their perspective, from a real estate standpoint, the viability of different locations in Fort Worth. And then I have the link to access those reports with the asterisk by it. So those are some studies and reports that we've done over the past couple of years that have helped give you a little bit more background and insight as to things we've already looked at that you can weigh in on and help during your response. As Fernando mentioned earlier, we have one of the executive committee members on the call, Scott Wilcox, but these are the individuals that will be reviewing the statement of qualifications and deciding ultimately a firm to do work for us. So that was quick. Any questions, comments, clarification on the actual RFQ itself?
Hi, it's Ted Silberberg from Lord. There was a desire to send written questions, which I sent, and Joy Bailey from our firm, to Dr. Barnett. There was no response. Will the responses be as part of this conversation, or will they be sent to us separately?
I think we can go ahead and we'll get in touch with Dr. Barnett and get a response back to you, hopefully by tomorrow.
And Victor, you'll put everybody's questions together, right? And all
Yes.
answers?
Yes.
If you'd like to pose those questions now, Mr. Silverberg, we'll answer them if we can. If they require more detailed response, we'll do that. And we'll circulate the answers to everybody simultaneously.
Okay. Oh, that's a great idea. Okay, so there was a survey of community stakeholders, business leaders in 2020, and then you had the 4-day workshop in 21 involved 200 different people. So are any additional consultations expected, or should we rely on the previous work as the basis for our work?
Fernando, you want to take that?
Yes, sir. I think interaction with community leaders would be an important part of the feasibility study. You can rely to a certain degree upon what we've documented in the past reports, but to gain a meaningful flavor for how the community is viewing this project, I think it would be good to engage in discussions which you can help us to structure around issues that are relevant to a determination of feasibility. I think you'll be working most closely with the executive committee and perhaps a larger board, which I imagine will be formed by the time the feasibility study gets underway. And I expect they'll want to identify other community leaders whose advice you'll want to seek in order to round out your understanding of the project. So I think the short answer to your question is yes.
Good.
Further consultations would be advisable.
But
Could I ask my other questions now, or do you want to go to other people first?
Why don't we see if Mr. Wilcox would like to elaborate on that response?
yeah, Fernando, if I'm understanding the gist of Mr. Silderberg's question, that we're not anticipating another formal survey process or another formal workshop process. It would be more informal, just as a part of you doing the work.
Yeah, it would be interviews with individual people.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Good way to put it. Thank you, Scott. Well, Mr. Silverbrooks, why don't you continue with your line of questions?
So there was terminology that referred to guidance for design. I think there's other folks here on the line that would be interested in what that means. So are you expecting any architectural or exhibition concept work as part of this feasibility? And what does guidance mean that you can clarify for everyone?
I had the exact same question.
Those are great questions, and I'm going to turn it over to Andy Taft. This is really a cheap shot, Andy. Andy Taft is the vice chair of the newly established nonprofit organization. He serves as president of Downtown Fort Worth, Inc. Andy, we're entertaining questions from a host of highly qualified firms who have expressed interest in this project. And we had a conversation just the other day, Andy, about the extent to which we would want to get into architectural design work in connection with the feasibility study. And I thought you had an excellent way to capture our thoughts about it. I thought maybe I should defer to you.
Well, my excellent thoughts are very location-based, Fernando. So if what I said was that it's hard to ask a consulting firm to do architectural work when we're considering the diversity of the kind of places, including an existing facility, then it would probably be unfair to ask that in a submission like this. What we hopefully will get is a sense from the design team of what would be needed generally in the options that we're considering, and maybe given some framework for cost estimations based on general building cost and industry standards and best practices. But I don't think that we're looking for significant architectural work at all, given the fact that we've got an existing building and potentially two existing buildings and some vacant sites. Fernando, did that capture it, or did I have another great?
Sure. No, I think that's very good. So only at a very high level would we be contemplating any spatial analysis, maybe some estimates on square footage and associated with different functions in the building, but nothing that would approach true schematic design at this stage, I don't think. I think you've said it very well, Andy. And actually, we're looking at possibly 3 existing buildings. So the Community Arts Center, the Lone Star Gas Company building, and the Gwynn School. Possibly all three our historic buildings in one way or another. The Community Arts Center would be a post-war, early mid-century modern architectural design, but historic in its own right. Lone Star Gas Company building in downtown Fort Worth is a historic building, as is the Gwynn School site. The Gwynn School site has particular cultural residence, historic and cultural residence with the African American community. So understanding how we can, how each of these three buildings might accommodate a museum and cultural center would be a good question to on which the consultant can give us some general high-level advice.
Fernando, this is Matthew. I interpreted because your scope didn't really have design or concepts. It was more setting the program for the museum, what the market feasibility was driving. And to use an example, like, do we need a theater for 50 people or do we need a theater for 300? And if 300 it works in the Community Arts Center already has 300, then another place you may have to do an addition or blow something out. And it's only at that level that you're looking for. And then you would give this to an architecture firm to create nice, pretty pictures.
Yes, sir. That's a very good way to describe it. Once we get feasibility studies aimed at helping us to make a decision as to the scope of the project and how we would go about pursuing it, subsequent design work would be another phase of this effort. Great question. Let's see if Mr. Silverberg, if you have additional questions that we can.
If the other folks don't mind, I'll just ask you a couple of other questions. So, no architectural design. How far does one go in the interpretive or exhibition planning? I'm assuming there's no exhibition design, but how far into determining what is the content of various spaces like permanent and temporary exhibition space, etc.?
Andy, you want to give that a try? Scott? Well, Scott's a museum expert in the group.
Yeah, I would jump in here and say that, again, it's more on the conceptual level that, based on your feasibility for this particular building, we think you would need either 50-50 permanent and temporary or 60-40, whatever it might be. And then anything that's part of your work among the three buildings that comes up and says, hey, it's not going to work in this building. So if you want it here, then we're going to need to do something else to accommodate that, blow out floors or whatever the case may be. So I think it's more about just what your work leads you to believe in terms of an appropriate mix between temporary and permanent. We have an idea of somewhere, in the 20,000 foot range for exhibition space, but we're not sure whether or not that's actually enough. And so that's kind of what we're looking for guidance on.
Or if it's too much.
Yes.
Scott's the only one in the field on this call on our side of the fence. So we'd be looking to the experts to advise on what the most sustainable and valuable contribution to Fort Worth this facility could mean or could be, and to get some help from you on how we go about the programming, physically and otherwise.
I'll ask the last question that I had. So there's financial analysis, there's capital cost estimate, projections of attendance, operating revenues, and expenses. Are those projections only for the preferred site, or are they for all three sites and / buildings?
Ideally, I think we would like to see them on all three sites.
We don't have a preferred site yet. And in fact, that kind of information would be instrumental, I think, in helping us to decide which site is most desirable in view of capital and operating costs. In fact, I think there's a fair degree of sentiment in the community that we ought to keep our options open among the three sites until we can fully assess the pros and cons of each. We've already had a healthy debate in the community, and I think that debate will continue as to which of these three sites is most advantageous. In fact, if you were to Google African American Museum in Fort Worth, you'd probably find an article or two about that debate. We've got some folks who believe the museum ought to be located in the historic heart of the African American community for obvious reasons, but others who feel equally strongly that it ought to be located where we can draw the largest number of visitors, which isn't necessarily in the heart of the African American community. It would be in the cultural district. I think there are strong arguments that can be made on behalf of either viewpoint. A lot depends on what kind of museum we're trying to develop. Is it principally a destination, or is it a place that convenes a community? Is it intended largely for archival purposes? Those are among the questions that we want to explore. Thank you, Mr. Silverberg. Those are great questions. Thanks for leading us off. Why don't we see if there are any other questions? I think Mr. Herman. Maybe not. Okay.
Sorry, I was on mute. Fernando, this is Matthew.
Yes, Matthew.
I just had a quick question on task 2, the site area evaluation. It says the sites and local area be evaluated to determine the effect and potential usage. And one of the factors says potential complementary and competitive facilities. Is there a background to what you're thinking about, like competitive? I mean, I can understand complementary, like you said, like cultural district, it would bring there. But is there some thought that there would be something that competes with it that would affect the market study?
That's a great question, Matthew. I'll give it a try. And Victor, I don't know if you want to add on to it. I think the emphasis ought to be on the complementary rather than competitive.
Right.
That's competition that's going to draw away from the museum. I think the question may be, to what extent can we take advantage of proximity to complementary uses? I think you'll find different kinds of complementary uses in all three cases. In the case of Community Arts Center, there'll be a lot of world-class museums. You've got the Carter, the Kimball, the Modern, and so forth. In the case of the Gwynn School, you'll be near some African-American institutions. In the case of Lone Star Gas Company, you've got the thriving activities in downtown Fort Worth. So each site would have its own advantages with respect to complementary uses. I don't know how the word competitive got in there, but I guess hypothetically there could be some competition that draws away from it, but I don't know what it would be. Thanks for the clarification, Matt.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't missing the subtlety there. That's all.
Yes, sir. No subtlety intended. Thank you. These are great questions. Any others? We've got so much expertise on this call. We would benefit greatly from any of you being part of this effort.
If there isn't, I'll add another reference to in the ULI study talked about 24,000 net square feet for everything. I heard 20,000 for exhibition space. That would imply like 40 or 50,000, right? So I think that means don't be guided by that 24,000 square feet, and that's part of our process.
Yes, sir. The museum experts panel that came to Fort Worth back in November of 2021, about a year ago, recommended that the facility might encompass a minimum of 24,000 square feet as a guideline. As we got into the subsequent study by the ULI team, we talked more and more about a 40,000 square foot facility. I think there's a sense among many of the project leaders that 40,000 would be a good size. We don't have a lot of evidence to corroborate it. That just seems to be an appropriate scale for a building of this nature. But all of these are initial ideas of what the museum might encompass. The feasibility study will help us to understand more clearly what the market can support realistically. Scott, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right, Fernando. I think when we started talking about all the programming effort that and the different opportunities for programming, whether it's theater, whether it's cultural center, meeting space, whether it's cooking demonstrations, when we started wrapping all of those things into the ideas to float, it just seemed like 20,000 or 24,000 as a total square footage might be a little light. So that's it. There's really been no more science put into it than that.
Thanks, Scott. Other questions?
I have a question, just simple. I think you said it earlier, but it got cut off a little bit when you were talking from my end. The questions that we're asking here, plus questions that were submitted, will be answered in writing. Is that right? Back to us?
Yes, sir. We'll provide you with concise answers, and perhaps we can attach a recording of this call so you can get further elaboration as necessary.
That's great. And then the last question I have is, I think Victor mentioned it, but you're going to be looking at the timeline and you'll let us know by tomorrow whether that's going to change?
That would make sense. We haven't discussed it with our executive committee. Let me, but that is a great question, and it's of relevance to everybody on this call. I'd like to get a sense from the folks on the call about whether a 1 or 2 week extension would be desirable or undesirable. Again, we're only requesting statements of qualifications. This is not a full-fledged request for proposal. Nevertheless, I know that even an RFQ response requires some effort. And I spoke, when I got word that this question might come up, I spoke with Dr. Barnett, and his response to me was, we're trying to get the best firm. If it takes another week or two to get the best firm, let's take it the extra time. Nevertheless, we want to be fair to everybody. And so I would welcome comments from anybody on the call that might guide our decision.
Fernando, my marketing and graphics department would always take another week.
Okay. So right now the deadline is, I believe, is it the 28th?
Yes, sir. Okay.
So the question is, should we extend it to maybe to Friday, November 4th? That would be a 1 week extension if that helps. Our aim is to select the firm before the end of the calendar year, having gone through any appropriate on-site interviews with the 2 or 3 finalists, and then authorize work to proceed in the first part of 2023, with roughly 6 months to complete the work. That's not set in stone, but that's the direction that the executive committee given us. Scott, you want to add anything?
No, I don't see a problem with another week. The only problem could be the interview schedule if we have to push that back because it is December when we were planning on doing
That's
that.
right. I don't think we want to move that because it was hard for us to set that date. So I think, what was that date? December 7th?
7th? Was it the
December
7th?
7th.
Yeah,
I think so.
7.
So anyone who expects to be invited to the interview, please mark down that date because we do want folks to carve out the time and come visit us in Fort Worth and talk about it further. So I don't think we'll want to vary that date, but we do have a little bit of wiggle room earlier, so we could move the response date to November 4th. I think that would still give us enough time to evaluate the responses and select the candidates and allow them to make suitable travel arrangements.
November 4th.
Lord Cultural Resources does not need an extension. We're fine with your
You're
schedule.
good with the deadline. Okay.
Yeah, we had the proposal for a few weeks. We're fine with it.
Terrific. Well, if we don't need to change it, we won't.
I would love an extension only just because we just got it. But otherwise, we can make it work if need be.
Okay. Victor,
I'd add, it would be great to have an extension as I just got it also.
All right.
Yeah, I think that was fair. I know I put a read receipt, and I know Guy said it went to both emails, but he didn't get a way to confirm that he received it, and I believe another firm as well. So yeah, it'd probably be fair for another week.
Another week to November 4th.
Yes.
Okay. And any objections to that from anybody? Hearing no objections, I'll make sure that we consult with our executive committee, and I don't know if Andy's still on the call, Andy Taft.
I'm here, Fernando. I don't have a problem with a delay of a week.
Okay. Sounds like a pretty much a consensus among our leadership to extend, and we'll put that indication in the response to the questions that we send out tomorrow. And make sure everybody's on board. Any other questions? All right, well, we've taken about 50 minutes of your time, and we appreciate it. It's very valuable. And we're most grateful for your interest in the Fort Worth African American Museum and Cultural Center feasibility study. We're very excited about it, and even more excited now that we see the level of interest that exists around the country in helping us to continue our advancement. Should you have any more questions, send them please to Victor Turner. But we'll try to get the responses out tomorrow to everybody, and look forward to your submissions of qualifications by the deadline now, Friday, November 4th. Victor, was that 5 p.m. Central on that day?
I think initially we had I want to say it was 11:59.
11:59 p.m. Okay. All right. Sounds good. I'll let Andy and Scott have the final word.
I don't have anything, Fernando. I just appreciate everybody's attentiveness to the project.
Thank you, sir.
Right, Fernando, and I'll just echo the fact that so many high-quality firms are as interested in this project as we are, and this next stage is gonna set the tone for how we move forward. So this is extraordinarily important to all of us, and I know that the firm that's selected is really going to help us get somewhere. So thank you all for participating today.
Thanks, Andy. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.